David Thornton and Grady Gauthier with the Minnesota PCA.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members. My name is David Thornton. I'm Assistant Commissioner at the Pollution Control Agency. I will go ahead and start speaking as we hopefully get our presentation up on the screen. My slides are in your handout, I believe. There's been a lot of news about Volkswagen and various lawsuits that have been brought against them and settlements. So there's a number of legal actions that have been decided and some that are still pending regarding consumer protection and things like that. I'm going to be talking about the environmental mitigation settlement that's a part of this lawsuit and how it affects Minnesota. So what happened? Volkswagen intentionally tampered with engines of diesel vehicles that they sold around the world and in the United States. These were 2-liter passenger vehicles and 3-liter sports utility vehicles that have been sold in the country since around 2009. They were caught by some tests that were done in California and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Nationwide, there were approximately 580,000 of these vehicles sold, and in Minnesota, about 9,300 vehicles sold. What happened was that these vehicles exceeded tailpipe emission standards that are allowed by regulation by over 30 times for the pollutant nitrogen oxide, which contributes to smog. And the equivalent pollution here in Minnesota was like adding 300,000 vehicles to our roads. So it was a fairly significant assault on the environment, if you will. There was a court case on this. The state of California and US EPA sued Volkswagen, and there was a nationwide lawsuit. I should tell you that we weren't following this court case. We were not a party to it, and we had no knowledge of what was going on in the settlement until the draft settlement was released sometime this past summer. So it caught us a little bit by surprise as well. Again, the charge was that they illegally tampered with the emission control systems on their diesel vehicles. Essentially what they did was they had software programmed to bypass emission controls when the car was being driven on the road and would use the emission controls when the car was being tested for emissions. So that's what happened, and again, it went. This affected model years 2009 on through 2015. So there was a very big settlement. Volkswagen, EPA, and California agreed to $14.9 billion for the environmental mitigation portion of the settlement to be distributed out and used over a 10-year period of time. $10 billion is for Volkswagen to either repurchase or repair their vehicles so that they meet emission standards. They actually don't have a ready fix at this point in time, so their only option right now is to repurchase the vehicle. But they're working on a fix that would allow them to potentially keep some of these vehicles on the road once they're repaired. Volkswagen is already in the process of buying back the subject vehicles. This is totally between Volkswagen and the owners of the vehicles. No state is involved in this. But the settlement document and the court are watching the pace that it's occurring in, and Volkswagen will incur additional penalties if they don't get these vehicles either off the road or repaired as soon as possible. $2 billion is for what is referred to as zero-emission vehicle infrastructure. This is either infrastructure for accommodating electric vehicles or hydrogen-powered fuel cell vehicles. And Volkswagen gets to propose a plan for installation of infrastructure across the country. That totals up to $2 billion for this. We've been in contact with Volkswagen, the people that are responsible for implementing this settlement. Their intention is to go all electric. And in fact, their intention is to stop making diesel vehicles altogether and switch over to electric vehicle manufacturing to complement their gasoline vehicles. So they're planning to install electric vehicle infrastructure around the country, focusing first on major highway corridors across the country. And our intention for communicating with them is so that we let them know that we're interested here in Minnesota and we'd like for them to spend some of their money here. $2.9 billion is for states, Puerto Rico, and tribes to be distributed to those different entities, and the intent behind that portion of the settlement is to make up for the air pollution that has been occurring as a result of Volkswagen's actions. In other words, it's to mitigate the air pollution that has already occurred and that is continuing to occur. The money is being distributed or made available to states and such based on the number of vehicles that were actually registered, the subject vehicles that were actually registered in the state. The way this is going to work is that the federal court has set up a mitigation trust for the $2.9 billion. The estimated amount available to Minnesota is $47 million. For all of the tribes nationally, collectively, the amount available to them is $54 million. Some states are getting a lot more and some states are getting less. As I mentioned, it's based on how many cars were registered in those states. So a high population state like California is going to get several $100 million, and a low population state like North Dakota is going to get considerably less. We're very much in the middle of the pack. The court will appoint a trustee to disperse the money to the states and tribes, and is in the process right now of trying to select a trustee. We don't know how long that will take. The dollars will flow directly from the trustee to the state or tribe. There are strict limits in terms of how this money can be used. And again, the goal is to make up for the illegal excess pollution that is occurring from Volkswagen engines. This slide lists the different types of activities that can qualify for use of these mitigation trust funds. I'm not going to go into most of them. They are essentially either installing pollution control equipment on existing classes of diesel engines that are out operating. It can mean repowering a piece of equipment with a new engine that is a lower polluting engine, or it can mean taking a piece of equipment off the road and replacing it with something new that either emits less or uses a different kind of fuel, like replacing a diesel truck with a natural gas truck, or replacing a diesel bus with a natural gas bus, for example. I will point out the second to last bullet, light-duty zero-emission vehicle supply equipment. The trust settlement specifically allows a state to spend up to 15% of their allotted monies on zero-emission vehicle infrastructure. And so that in Minnesota would probably mean electric vehicle charging infrastructure. These are pass-through funds. They're not going to be in our budget. It's private money, basically coming from Volkswagen to us, the state, through the trustee and the trust fund. Under the terms of the settlement, the governor must apply for the state to be a beneficiary for us to be eligible to receive these funds. One state must be identified to act as the fiscal agent for the state, which includes setting up requests for proposals, and awarding and managing the grants. The governor's indicated that he's intending to identify the Pollution Control Agency as that state agency. It's important to note that the trustee must approve each emission reduction project, so there's quite a bit of scrutiny on the part of the court and the trustee over how this money is used, and that grantees can be either local government or state government, private companies, nonprofits, and tribal governments are eligible as well. After consultation with Minnesota Management and Budget, it was determined that the most appropriate way to accept these funds in the state, these pass-through funds, is under the authority listed in Chapter 16A.013, which refers to acceptance of gifts and specifically address accepting gifts that come from trusts. So once again, these are not federal funds, they're private trust funds, and this will be the process that we're looking at for passing them through. In terms of next steps, I mentioned that we have to file as a beneficiary. We're preparing that paperwork now, although we don't know when a trustee will be awarded or a trustee will be selected. It could be this week or it could be several months from now, but we need to be prepared. At some point, a number of days after the trustee is selected, it's approximately 3 months, we have to put together a preliminary trust mitigation plan that we submit that the trustee would then approve, and then eventually all projects would have to be approved by the trustee. There is public participation that's required, even though we would want to get that anyway. We are currently planning a formal notice and comment period that would begin around the end of February for individuals and anyone to provide comments to us about how they feel like we should use this money within the confines of the settlement. We also are planning 2 public meetings to get input and to provide information about this. One would be around the end of February and then another later in March. Under the anticipation that this process is actually going to take longer, we also want to form a technical advisory group to help us make technical decisions. We want to spend this money well. We want to more than overcome the pollution that has been occurring as a result of this action by Volkswagen. So we're looking for help in establishing the kind of criteria that we would use for judging projects that would be proposed to us. We want to continue to engage the legislature in this process. As I said, I think it's going to drag out for a few months, so that would be beyond the legislative session. So in addition to being engaged with you during session, we need to figure out a good way to stay engaged with you after the session, because I imagine the plan that we need to submit will probably happen sometime in the summer or maybe even a little bit later. And I would also guess that the first grant awards probably wouldn't happen until next fall or even possibly later than that. We have a website that is listed at the bottom of this slide where we have a lot of information available and an opportunity for people to submit comments to us now. And Madam Chair, that's my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton. Are there questions? Yes.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just have a comment. I'm a VW owner as well, so I did my part, and VW has been very helpful in providing information for those buyers that were that had these vehicles, and I did my part and turned it in on Friday. So I no longer have my VW. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thornton, how do you envision the legislature to be involved with you and in figuring out where the money and the grants are going to go? You talked about maybe putting together a council, and how do you envision that to work? I know this is relatively new, because you're right, we didn't follow this real closely. It was kind of, it's like, surprise, you have $47 million coming. I wish that would happen to us more often, but, so how do you envision this as we go forward?
Madam Chair, that's a great question, and we haven't really sorted that out. We clearly want to seek your advice, and we will have an ongoing advisory group, and it may be that some legislators should be a part of that. It may be that we should regularly report back to you about what's going on. I'm certainly open to ideas. We haven't really, as you said, it's happened kind of fast. We haven't sorted it all out.
Thank you. Members? Oh, Senator Weber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my comment would be simply along the lines of we're looking at the receipt of $47 million funds. I think we need to keep in mind the size of the bureaucracy should be proportionate to what we are receiving here, and that we don't become bureaucratically top-heavy in this whole equation.
Thank you, Senator Weber. Ms. Gauthier.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Weber. A couple things, just so for your information. The money will come in over 3 years. And the federal court has said that whatever the state agency is or the tribal agency or the territorial agency that's going to be administering the funds can use a certain percent for overhead. And we think most of that is going to be, a lot of that's going to be in grants management, because we're going to be making a lot of grants with this money, obviously trying to extend the benefits of it as far as possible. So just to add that in.
Oh, Senator Torres-Ray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to share with you that in my family we own some of these vehicles, but coincidentally, I just happen to have neighbors and friends and constituents who own a lot of these cars. And when this whole conversation started, they were very upset, and they called me to see if we were going to take some kind of action or talk to the dealers here or whatever. So I presume that a lot of these people are going to be monitoring these activities, because obviously the reason they bought the car in the first place was because they wanted to have some they wanted to contribute somehow, kind of to environmental issues, and so environmental protections. So I presume some people are going to be just very interested in looking at how these grants are being put out and what kind of benefits we get. I don't know what would be the process to monitor kind of outcomes from grants, but I do know from my own constituents that this is something that they are tracking very closely.
Thank you, so Madam Chair and Senator Torres-Ray. So the people that own the vehicles, they are going to get compensated through Volkswagen dealerships and through that $10 billion. I myself owned one of those vehicles, and I will have to say Volkswagen I thought was extremely fair in the buyback price. However, had I known they were having trouble, I was told later I should have waited and I could have gotten more, but that's the way it goes. But yes, there will, the idea is there's a lot of interest already. Cities, the Metropolitan Airport, lots of people are interested in how this money will be spent. There are a lot of different, even though it's very restricted, there are a lot of different ways it could be utilized. And so that's why we want to have technical advice and, a very open process that people can participate in. And I encourage you to have all of you to have your constituents visit our website. And if they have comments or ideas about how the money should be used, they should write those right in, and those will come straight to us. So we already have had a lot of people comment on that.
Thank you. Senator Torres-Ray? Okay, thank you. Senator Senjum, are you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Thornton, or I hate to just call you Greta.
That's fine.
We see each other so often. I'm looking at the list of applicable kind of projects that the money can be spent on, and we don't have too many ferries or tugs or ocean-going vessels. I mean, certainly if you're in Duluth, you wouldn't say that, but is it fair to say that just as an example, according to this list at least, if you were a garbage hauler and had diesel trucks, that you might be eligible for, I don't know, at least a new engine in that truck? Is it that simple?
Madam
Mr.
Chair, Senator Centrum, that's one option, repowering either replacing the truck altogether, putting a new engine in it that's cleaner, or repowering it with natural gas, for example, would be options that a garbage hauler might have. And many of those are similar. Many of those options apply to many of the other categories of eligible expenditures as well.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Sinjin.
I could see at some point it could be complicated depending on how many garbage haulers in this instance wanted new trucks and whether you had enough money. But let me just leave that one. When you put this much NOx in the air, and we talk about the health effects of NOx, I guess maybe just a comment. I'm just a little surprised that none of the eligible uses have anything to do with at least or are associated with the health effects and maybe, if you will, mitigating those health effects or even treating those health effects. I guess none of that is eligible, at least for any funding. Is that right?
Mr. Thornton.
Madam Chair, Senator Centrum, you're right. The money essentially all has to, with the exception of that light-duty zero-emission vehicle equipment item, the money has to all go towards reducing emissions, not treating the effects of emissions.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Sinjin. Are there other questions? Thank you, Mr. Thornton, Ms. Gauthier.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your help today. With that, members, if there's no other questions, we are adjourned.